I would love to make this world a more loving place.
Yes.
Like if you and think of the society we live in, right? If someone said, Elliot, how was your day? If I said, man, my day was great. I hugged 3 people and I made 5 people smile.
Yeah.
I don't know that people would praise me as much if somebody said, Elliot, how was your day? If I said, oh, my day was great. I sold, 1,000 books.
Right.
And I made $1 million and I paid off my car, right?
Yeah.
We praise those things, but actually making people smile
Yes.
and giving a person who's struggling a hug has a far greater impact
Yes.
than any of those other things that we tend to celebrate more.
Yes. I mean, this is partially why I started this work of breaking bias, because I was doing it within myself. And one thing that's inspired me all these years is Dr. King's quote, our goal is to build a beloved community.
Correct.
And this will require qualitative changes in our souls and quantitative changes in our lives. And that's what we're talking about. Like, how do we build a more loving world? And part of what I'm hearing from you is, in order for us to build a loving world out there, one that's more compassionate and equitable and just, we have to start with building a loving world within ourselves.
Yes. But that's really hard. Like the first act of self-love that I ever did.
Yes.
I think prior to that moment that I described in my dorm room, I don't think I ever did anything for self-love. I did things for just self-protection. For example, I was a really good athlete. I played football, baseball, and basketball as a kid. And that meant I was out of my house at practice almost year round because those seasonal sports surrounded the whole year. Yeah. So I wasn't doing those things out of love. I was doing those things out of protection. They kept me out of the environment where I felt unsafe.
Sure.
The first act of self-love I ever did was after I had that realization, like, all right, I'm going to outlive this pain. I became aware of what the threat was to my life in a more acute way.
Yeah.
And I called my father and I said, I need for you to hear me say what I'm about to say. I need to live in a world where I'm not being hit, called names, yelled at, or cursed at. Wow. I can deal with everything else, but I need those 4 things to not exist in my life.
Yes.
And he said, F you, and hung up the phone.
Yes.
And I said, okay, you've just demonstrated you can't follow these 4 rules. You just broke one. So again, I'm going to date myself. We used to have these things called answering machines.
Yes, we did. 2 phones that were connected to the wall.
Yeah, exactly. And my father was traveling when I called him and made that request. So I knew he wasn't home. So he said, F you, and he hung up the phone. So I called his home phone and I left a message on his answering machine that said, you are not welcome in my life until you can follow one of these 4, all 4 of these rules. I love you and I want you in my life, but I also have to love me. And I know that it is not healthy for me to have those 4 things happening. So when you can follow those rules, please give me a call.
Amen.
He called my younger brother the next day and told my younger brother that I will respect Elliott's wishes and not call him. And I was devastated.
Wow.
I was like, that's not what I said. I didn't ask you to not call me. I just asked you to not break those 4 rules.
Yes.
And I thought, how crazy is it that he'd rather not talk to me than follow these 4 basic rules. And I didn't talk to him for over 20 years.
Wow.
He has chosen, even to this day, he's never called me. I saw him about a month ago at my younger brother's daughter's basketball game. My father was there and I just saw him and he came and gave me a hug and said, hi, son. And I was like, hello. like we haven't spoken. But he still has not accepted that he must follow those rules. That was the first act of self-love. And it was one of the hardest things I ever did. And the reason I share that is because we think of love as this like amazing, like great thing. And it is. It's both amazing and great. But it also sometimes forces you to do the hardest stuff that you could ever possibly do in your life.
Yes.
And for me, I had to stand up to my torturer and
Yeah.
reclaim my life. And the way I did that was by asking him not to do those things. And he, of course, said he broke one of the rules right away. And I was in that moment. It's like, am I strong enough to follow through with
Yeah.
what I said? And my life has gotten better since that moment. Literally, like, it just keeps going up,
Yes.
because that was the moment I started to love me. And as you've already said, which I agree with, I can't distribute love if I can't manufacture it within myself.
Within myself. Yes.